Right, so we were on Tough Yud Gimel, and we were in the middle of the beer on the kasses at the beginning of the Maimah, and we saw that the shaila was, why do we say that Davki in the Sessi Mechuva, but that's the Giluya of Dirshu Hashem Behimotza'oi, and we say that Davki then the Eivstis Nimtza Gam Yochid Kemoy Tzibur, Ve'ilu in the pasuk Dirshu Hashem Behimotza'oi. I'm sorry, in Ilu in the pasuk B'chol Koreinu Mik Hashem Alakeinu B'chol Koreinu Elov. We said that that's only L'tzibur but not L'yochid. That's B'zman Arogio, not in the Sasha Meichua. You need to have another pasuk Dirshu Hashem Behimotza'oi. And it's not enough, you can't learn the Sasha Meichua from B'chol Koreinu Elov. So the shadow was that B'chol Koreinu Elov seems to be the Yerushalayim Ma'ala Mishtalsheles. It was enough Kimina if it's mitzad that drosha or mitzad another drosha. If it's already L'Ma'ala Mishtalsheles, it should be Nimtza Gamle L'Yochid. Meaning that the Yerushalayim Gamle L'Ma'ala Mishtalsheles shouldn't be any enough Kimina being Tzibur L'Yochid. So the answer was that B'chol Koreinu Elov is Einachanama Elov Lo V'Leila Midoisov. It's talking about the Gilui, about the Hamshocha of Atzmas, say, and the ability, as it were, to make kesher or to reach the inyan for Ein Seif. How he is L'Maila Mio Ilames. However, the Rebbe said that it's still got a certain shaykhs to the inyan of Ishtalsheles. Since we say that we're shoylal the inyan from, we say Ei Lo V'Leila Midoisov, is a similar. There is some kasachadaitach, however, there of the inyan of midoisov, and we say Elo v'Leila midoisov. There's a similar that he's not completely in that level. Niram is in that pasuk completely legamri l'mayla mi shaykhs to the chitania so Ein Seif, which is shaykh la'elam. And therefore, we say that even though the ability to reach the Eibusha there is unlimited, but it can only be done through a tzibur, only through a koyach elin, where the yochid himself remains unable there, just like he would be the Aramalubish Bishtalsel. However, in the Zman of Rosh Hashanah, the Sersi Mechuva, then is Meir the Pinimis V'Atzmius of the Ein Seif. What that we saw was in the Maimah, we saw that was the inyan of Atik. That's the Tafteinish of a Maitzel, the inyan for Gila Ein Seif Mamish, and we saw that that's Mizgala precisely in the inyan of Moicha or Chochmas Timoa, or that's inyan for Tikboiris, Gvuris, the Atik, Yoimin, Amuluboshim, B'Moichas Timoa, and we saw that the Gvura there is the inyan for Tikboiris or Atzmias, the, what you might call the overcoming power of the Atzmas, to be meir dafki into that madrega, and that's the of Chosaf Hashem as Roya Kodashoi. The Davis literally drew up the sleeve. How do you call it? He made bare his arm. The inyan from Roya Kodashoi, the inyan from Shlil Salavushim, L'Mayla Mi Lavushim altogether. And we saw that was the inyan Amavur and Kama Mekemas Kiruv Hamoya El Hanitzotz. Meaning that the inyan of the moya be'eishuhu mitalatzmusay mamish is bekiruv to the nitzot haprati, and therefore we saw there's the ability that even the yochid can reach and be poil his inyonim in atzmas Ein Seif, and therefore we saw davkim mitzad that because there was a gili of atzmas. But even shall tikbiras or atzmas guris in Atik, amen. And therefore we saw that was the zman atshuva, l'tachein kol ha'pagamim v'alchisreinas shechiser be'iza mitzvah or ikitzer ba'avedus havaya. Very interesting lesson that he might have missed in some mitzvah, or he might have been makatzer in avedus havaya. In other words, he sort of made a few quickies here and there. He sort of got away with it rather than doing the shleimus ha'inyan. So the Rebbe, even for that, if you've been Makatzer, Baveda Savaya, then for that you also need a Inim from Tikkun HaPagamim, V'mili HaChisreinas. That's also a Inim from Chisar. Not only missing on a mitzvah, but for Klolas HaAveda, where you could have been Mamali Inyan Aveda, or you could have been Mashlim an Inyan in Aveda, and you made it Kilo Bekitza, is then even that needs a Tikkun and a Mili HaChisreinas. The Bigdela Malish HaPegomim HaChisreinas is one of Pegam. The Alter Rebbe brings in Geras HaTshuva. That is from Lashon Pegimus HaSakin. In other words, it's a niche in the shleimus of the blade. In the same way, the shleimus Amshocha that he could have been Mamshich has in itself literally holes or lackings. And therefore, niches, as you might say, and therefore we need a milah of all tzodik liyos Amshocha b'chinas atzmus einsei. And that's the union from Pnimis Ati b'chinas atzmus hatainu. The commission is Bu'aliyu Perikuf Tzadik Gimel. But over there we saw an amazing Indian, but maybe you remember it, Al Chaponim, with some sort of clarity or lack of saying, but anyway, we did have it over there, that the Mitzadi Indian, the Pnimis Atainu, which comes from Mitzad Tshuva, or is the outcome of Tshuva, or the Pa'ul of Tshuva, is Davki Mitzad the mile of Neshomas Yisrael, Davki Mitzad the Kiruv of Neshomas Yisrael, Li'atzmusa Yisborach, and that's Kila, he's Mesanig in the Etzem Metzias of Yidden, and even Lamaila Mitoiro Mitzvah. So therefore that gives the ability that what a Yid returns, as it were, to Elokus, Mamish, Lavino, Shabashamayim, but Apshitas, he comes back literally to Oviv, Shabashamayim. Then that's Ma'ira, the Pnimis V'atzmis HaOinig, which is in the Shomas Yisrael, Davke, even Lamaila Mi'inyan from Torah or Mitzvahs, Validei, what is Ma'ira, that Inyan HaOinig, and Mamila, there's also Nimshach, the Inyan from a new Rotzen. In Mamila, there's Nimshach HaRotzen, which is Metakein, or the Alvinyonin that were lacking in the Rotzen of Torah or Mitzvahs, and I feel in the Inyan from Avidos is Borah. Even though Tainug and Rotzen are not the same thing, and on the contrary, Tainug with the Pnimius and Rotzen is the Indian from Amshocha, but Derek Gilui HaChitzoni Mia Atzmas. However, said the Rabbi, if you reach the Amitis Indian HaOineg, then automatically there's Kilo Indian from Amshocha Sarotzen Mid Chadash. But since you come back into the Mokeh of all the Amshochas, that's Pnimius Tainug. And dort is there, as it were, nachas ruach lofonai, mitzad the Amitis Inyan of Tainug, and there's also a new gilui in the Inyan HaRotzen. But even though Rotzen is a different Inyan than Tainug, but mitzad the shleimas at the kaviyach, the nachas ruach, in the Shomas Yisrael, then there goes automatically a new Inyan in the Inyan from Rotzen. Amira the Eibishter Afilu Mitzad the Inim from Rotzen, Afilu Mitzad Torah Mitzvahs, is Megala a new Rotzen in the Aveda of Yidden, even though it may not have been Betachas HaShleimus. Amira that causes the Inim from how do you call it, Milui Kol HaChisreinas Pagomim. That was what was Mavur over there in that wondrous piece in Perik Kuf Tzadik Gimel. Zehu Gam Kein Inyan Tkiya Shoifar. שהוא עניין הצייק הפנימיס מוהם כדליבה בחינת צוח ליבום, but that's the union of shofar. What inyan is not stama tzeiken or a tzeiker from etzem apnimis alev, but that's the union from tzoach libom. So on the beer, berichas and chassidus, that there's a union from kola di stama, and then there's a kola pnimo the loy stama, and then there's a kola pnimo the loy stama klau. So kola pnimo or kola di stama. That's a call which can come into call. It comes in a Masudadik Afilinoisias. Kola Pnimo the Loyastama is in from Lamaila Mioisias, of Al it comes in the form of Tzaikas HaKol. At least he can make himself heard through the union of a Kol Poshut, וכעצב וזה מצד המקבל. אבל the immediate call poshet of Tkiya Shofar is another Indian altogether, but that's called a pnimur, the lo yishtam klal, and therefore it's called the etzem halev itself is tzuek. Not that he gives off a tzayka mi'alev, nor the lev atzmai, tzuek. And that's and therefore kaviyochu, there's no Indian from kol and no Indian from oisius and kal v'chaima, but there's not even any Indian of kol, but oisius or Indian. Therefore, the Indian from shofar is not really a human call. It's a call behemoth. You do it. It's a call bialma because it represents the tzaychas alev, which is l'mayla mikol gamke. And that's what he means. The Indian from pnimis v'atzmi is kedeliba, the tzaycha of the lev v'atzmi. The shofar who call hamatil charoda. We see it's not stomach call. It's not a how would you call a normal coal? It's that we just pointed out it's not a human coal. And there's another aspect to it, that the coal of the shofar causes pachad. Yeah? When you hear the coal of shofar, it's matil charoda. In other words, that fear and shrek which comes from shmiyas hakol, that's indicatory of Indian gvureis. That's a pnimis of atik, like we saw the Indian from tikboiras ha'atzmas sheba atik. Therefore, the kol ha'shofar not only mitzat makabel is the Indian of l'mayla mikol Indian kol. Now that's the Indian from tzaychas halev mamish. So it is milmayla. That's the Indian from the atzmias mamish pnimis v'atzmias hataynu. V'yam azman ha'masugel hazehu b'seres yemei teshuva the oz mei pnimis pnimias atik. The most fitting time for these inyanim, for the Indian from Tshuva, which began with the Indian from Tkiya Shofar, and to bring it out into Golu and into more, what you might call detail, the Chayei Adam, well, that's in the Aseres Yemei Tshuva. What then the Hamshocha began by Tkiya Shofar is Meir B'toikev during those days. Yeah, the B'chinas Madregezu, Lo Yesh Chiluchi Madreges Klal. In that level, Gevura is the Atik, which is Pnimis Atik, Pnimis Hamaitzel Mamish, there's no Shiluchim Madreges, Vahari Hu Motzui, Lakur Dershov, Gamli Yochid, and the Abish is literally there, and he's ready, and he's available, as you might say, to anybody who looks for him, even if he's a Yochid, even if he doesn't have what you might call the organized koyach behind him of a tzibur. But he's just a yochid k'moisha, who is in that particular zman, that's the mila of that zman, even over b'chol koreinu eilo. B'chol koreinu eilo is omnam l'mayla mi'ishtausos, but that's shai kol hashon. This is the zman davki of Aseres Yemei Tshuva, pnimius gvuris da'ati. So therefore, that's the teretz why it is Davki as we say that he's Motzur Yochid. Obi Yerushalmi, so we brought down earlier at the beginning of the Maimar, we brought down the Lashon of the Yerushalmi, that where's he Matsui b'bate Knesses or bate Midrashes. We saw that the Yerushalmi makes it even for Mokim Davke, a place Kavioho, that if you're there and you derish him, from there then you'll find him. And for Elu we saw in the Sifri and the Medrash that we bought, the Iker was the Etchem Madrege in the Mashpia that made it possible for it to reach him, because Madrege, I feel that the Madrege is a Yochid Mitzad Atzmi. For Elu in the Yerushalmi we saw there was an emphasis on the Indian Mokim Davki. It has to be Davki for Beit HaKnesses. And not only Beis HaKnesses, no Beis HaMedrash. In other words, the fact that he mentions not only Knessias, but also Bati Medrash, is a simon that there's a Hadgosha in that Muvan on the Indian from Limada Torah Davki. It's well known that brought down in the Gemara, there's a Indian to learn where you daven. There where you daven, you should immediately be mamshik. Even from limud, so we could suggest that the movement in that Yerushalmi, the Bati Knessiyas, held their shayat to the Bati Medrash. In other words, that the Iker Hadkosha on Limud HaTorah. So the Rebbe says a very interesting thing. He says that the Inyan from Yerushalmi is Madgish Hainu Batoira, that the Eibush is Motzui in these places, Davke, mitzad the fact that they are Mekoimus HaTorah. Davke there is the Inyan from Limud. The Hukumation is Bo'ali, so here it connected very fascinatingly that we saw that the Chochmas Timur may have Pnimizatik. Just like we were learning just now, Beneged Dirshu Havaya B'Yimotzei in the Shemei Tzura. In other words, we were talking more mitzad the actual Maila of the Inyan Atzmoi and what you might call the Zman there. But here the Yerushalmi is Madgish that it comes kilo mitzad Moki Masuyam. So the Rebbe said that's the Maila of the Inyan from Torah. Davke. He said, because as we said, that Chochmas Timur, what does it, the Shoresh HaTorah, he do it anyway, is Meya via Pnimius Atik. In other words, we were saying that Pnimius Atik is Meya, and that's Ki'ilu, the Inyan of Dirshu Havaya B'Himotzoi. He's so Atzmi that he can be found to anybody. Now they'll be saying that happens to be also the Mokia Atzmi from Torah. As is well known, that the Inyan of the Birulim al Torah, the Giluim in Torah, Be'etzem Nimshach from Chochmas Timur, because Chochmas Timur is the Mokia of Chochmas Atzila. And that's the Inyan of the Yud Gimel Midas Torah Nidreshes poem, but that's connected to Yud Gimel Midas Arachimim, which Makoyram is in Chochmas Timur, as we'll soon see in the Hemshech. So therefore, the Inyan from Chochmas Timur is shar to the Inyan from Etzem HaTorah, not just Gilui HaTorah, over the Etzem Moker of the Torah. So HaTorah he gam kein tshuva. There was in the Rebbe, it follows that Torah is also tshuva. The Kamosh HaTshuva he refuah, ukemaim gedol tshuva shemavia refuah li'elam shenema erpo mishovaisam. Yeah, what we touch Mishovaisam. Yeah, from Russian tshuva mishuvaisam. Yeah, from your tshuva I will heal you. K'moy kain batoira ksiv olachol besorei marpei. Yeah, that's what down in Pirchei. Yeah, the Torah is how do you call it? Shikvui lemarcha v'selcha and all those inyanim support down in Perek Vav, in the last Perek. Yeah, but they said lachol besorei marpei brings that posik. The Torah literally is a healing to the flesh of the body, to the flesh of the Adam, the Inyan from Limud Torah. So we see that the Inyan from Torah is refuah, and refuah we just said refers to Teshuva. Sivan, the Torah also got to do with the Inyan from Teshuva, and that's the well-known bio it's brought down. But Chassidus Bariches, ani l'doidi v'doidi li ha'roya b'shoishanim. That's well known that there's the Zohar Karishtait is shoishanim al tikroi shoshanim ela shoshoinim b'halochas. The Alter brings it in the famous ani l'doidi. It teaches it out also the Sof HaMaimah, that the Inyan from Limud Torah, Shoinim Bahalochas, particularly the Inyan from learning Torah, how it is mitzad the ultimate Kavanah of Torah, which is Inyan Halochas, but that's Inyan of Atik Shabbat Torah, the ultimate purpose, the ultimate Kavanah Shabbat Torah, or that's also a Inyan from Tshuva Ma'aliosa, it's a Inyan from Tshuva Atzmis, Tshuva Iloah, and that's Inyan from Anila Doidi, V'doidi Li, how it is B'shleimus, through the Inyan from Limud Torah. So there was the Rebbe V'hainu mipnei she'achochma the Torah yesh b'zeh gilui b'chinas pnimiyes atik. Well, that's the same meaning. Dirshu Havaya B'Himotzoi. So the Taich is mit aufs Chavek setzen and learn a bissel Torah. Und es wird alles gut sein. That's one on the mind from the Baditchewa. The Baditchewa gesagt, if you hear that there's a Muhammad Ba'elam, then you should sit down and learn up achilik. You should be machalik up achilik in a Gemara. He said that's called the one in of. If we go in another life, then it'll be different. That you should be machalik up achilik. He said that all the Muhammads in the world, As they say from the Baal Shem Tov also, they all come from the fact that there's a division in the Sfiras Elyon. There's a hevdor and a chilik between Tiferes and Malchus, Ika Hazor, Ika HaMalchus, that they're not allowed to be getting together through all sorts of, you know, when the father had the Shlogarei in the world, from Muhammad. If you make a chilik al pi Torah, and there was a division, this is al pi Torah, then you know, cause a yichud back between them. And that gets out the religion. There was a man. He said, yeah, that there was coming a whole series of armies or geisos or something were coming close into the area where there was some shlogarei between Ruslan and Prussia, or such it was. And so when they told him, he sat down in the base of Medrash and he learned the sugya, and he made a chilik from Machalik given a chilik of the halacha in a sugya what he learned, and he said that the Milt Shema doesn't mevatel sein to Muhammad. Kachu Amar. Here it's not written that particular prat of it's written Limud HaTorah Zinim and Pnimis. Atik. There'll be mevatel all these Balim Milchama, all these Rachmanin and Klan, all these people who are Rachman and Klan Mechavu, B'kerem Hashem, and you bring all these terrible tzoras. The best thing to do is sit down and learn a bit of Pnimis HaTorah, Ayin Beis, and to Shreida, that's Pnimis Atik. Remember, with this mevatel sein die alle Balim Milchama. But Rachmanin and Klan, B'teich Shtusam, they say that they're going for Sholem. They're going for Tatas HaMilchama. Rachmanin in Klan Hoyer. They see, Alidei Limud HaTorah, you can be poil the Al-Rinyonim. Because you might say that who's got koyach now to do tshuva, Mamashach, tshuva, and Hamasah even, well, it's koyach for them, of a lernen, come a lernen. It's chavek, it's a lernen. So if you say you got no koyach for that, it's davon sagen, it's a kapitel Tilim, give my gishrei, tzvach libo. Gamto. Anyway, the main thing is do something. I know if this chok with the Torah, yesh v'zeh gilui b'chinas pnimiyat, atik, v'zeh dirsho havaya b'hi motza oi. Eilu asore yomim shebein Rosh Hashanah leyom HaKir Purim. There's one on the Diuch and the Rebbe said that it's not really Asara Yomim Bein, because that's only 7 days of it. It's Asara Yomim Bein that they're also included. That Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim are the two extremes, and they're also included in it. Dios hu motzoi ainu shenim shebchinas atzimus ein seif. But that's the Indian of Pnimius Atik. The Eibishter be'atzmusei alidei hagvura is the Atik. V'hari umotzi kaviochel l'doyer shov gamle gei leyochi. Timothy puts in the word kaviochel. Oh, he didn't. I don't think he mentioned the term kaviochel so much. So maybe he wants to get him to include even those who say, well, everything's kaviochel. You got to be careful. You know what you're talking about. You know how. And the Misnagdim used to, once upon a time, they used to refer to the Avish as the Kaviochel. Nowadays they can't talk about the Avish, you have to call it the Kaviochel. Don't know, why isn't speaking to him? When the Baal Shem Tov got into the Toldos, he was trying to talk to him, you know, the man using his way to the Shtibel. And he wouldn't listen to the Baal Shem Tov, you know, so the Baal Shem Tov said to him, Nem Tzuf and the Kaviochel, sign Panosa. He started to sing with he was so angry that this guy was interfering with his learning. But all of a sudden, you know, he said that he disturbs the apes. That was so marvelous. In the end, he sort of said, what do you mean by that? Kitzer, Amnon, Chochma, Imi Yosef Rak Koyach, Nikra, Anefesh Al Shmoi, or Al Shem Achot. Even though Chochma is only a Koyach, we saw that the whole Etzem HaNefesh is called Nefesh Amas Killers, Al Shem Inen HaChochma. The Etzem HaNefesh or Chochma. So it comes out of his there that there's some in him what the Etzem HaNefesh and Chochma identify. She says, oh, Milas HaOdom. We saw that was the Milas HaOdom. Who Inen HaTikron. Zeu Sibas Matthias Koyach HaChochma. And the Etzem of the Odom, he's the Sibba for the Inen from Koyach HaChochma. V'lochein misached im ha'etzem v'nikra al shmoi. And that's what we saw was the inyan Davke Nefesh HaMaskelen. And we saw that what is the etzem? What is etzem ha'adam? Tainu. V'zeu sha'tainu u sibas ha'chochma. Now we kept saying in the inyan Siba, because that's talking about chochma, how it's a koyak gluya me'anevim. So we said that the tainu is ein Siba. And we spoke about that the mile of Siba mitzad echor, and the chisaron kekilo, but the mile is that the mesuvav kol metziusa is really the Siba. So even though we're talking about chochma as a koyak, that's only been nimshach me'etzem ha'nefesh, we say that the inyan from tainu is Sibosa. But we said a BM is b'pnimis v'atzmiyas b'mekoyre v'shor sheishalat chochma u'BM is mitzad atzmiyas a tainu hu atzmei na'ase chochma. That really the inyan from tainu comes. I'm sorry, the inyan from chochma is mamish mitzad inyan a tainu be'etzem inyonoi. That we said only a Siba, that's because we'll see if we go on a bit further. Chokma mi'ayin timotzei, the whole inyan from Chokma is nimshach, but derech matzia, but derech dilug, and therefore, even for yesh mi'ayin, therefore we call it Siba for the Chokma gluya. But mitzad pnimis v'atzmiyas or inyan, in other words, Chokma how it is, pnimis shor, then the inyan from tainu mamish becomes Chokma. Well, in a Chokma he kefi tainu davli, but our mosho. We saw that Barich the whole Moshe, the Moichin the Gadlus, Hein Baha, Havdola, that we saw that the inyan of Moichin the Gadlus was inside the inyan from Tainu, but that was the inyan of Chochma, how it is mitzad the inyan from Tainu. But B'Shor Shor Mekoyru Tainu HaNe'elam, and therefore it's the inyan from Havdola, because Tainu HaNe'elam means Tainu that is mitzad atzmus pnimius atik. So the chokmas timoa hu pnimius atik. The davke in chokmas timoa hu beprinas pnimius. Yeah, we saw that not only that the inyan from chokmas timoa is nimshach from pnimius atik, but chokmas timoa is mislabich in atik bio even pnimius mamish. And that was we saw the gvules. The davke alidei the gvules, they can be this forcing kaviochel of the atzmiyos into the bechina, which is called chochmas timor. V'yesh loima dezeh inyan gvules the atik shemalubish b'moiches timor. That was the piyur in this inyan that atik can be nimtze b'pnimis mamish in chochmas timor. V'zeh dirusha Hashem behimotzoi. Yeah, the bechol koreinu eila bechinas rotzen. Now we saw that rotzen is also Einyan from the chitoni kaviochel legabi the etzem. Not that it's not a koyach atzmi, but it's a koyach atzmi how it's nimshach boivim chitoni. Or behimotzo oiva se'os meitrua. Yes, etzem matzui, that is mamish atik itself. For ilo bechol koreinu eila, we saw was how it's got a shaychas upon him to the inyan from how do we call it Gilgota. What Gilgota is the inyan from chitonius, the inyan from rotzen, how it's a makif of al chaponim. It's not the pnimius of atzmusay mamish. That's davki through the inyan from gvules, which come into chochmas to more precise. And what we saw, that's in a sersha mitzua, sha'etzem matzui, ubi Yerushalmi, bati kinesias or bati madrashas, zeh the inyan from Torah, which is also bechinas chochmas too. Therefore, learning Torah is also a form of tshuva. Haroya b'shoy sham. Right. So now we go on. B'siyat nishma el ba'is techagas sukkis. Also, Tov Reish Ayin Dalet. We're going to see now the inyan from sukkah.
To ask, how does Tainuk turn into Chochma?
How
does Tainuk turn into Chochma?
How does Tainuk turn into Chochma? Well, that's what we learned in the previous hours. We said that really the inyan from Chochma b'shor ha'pnimi v'atzmi, the inyan from Tainuk, the inyan from Chochma is the inyan from Dveikis v'bitul v'iskalul. That's in the inyan from Etzem. That's what Chochma is mitzad pnimi yosei. Therefore, pnimis of Chochma is in from Dveikis, Ria, all those inyanim. So we see that those inyanim are connected with the inyan from Tainu, the inyan from Riyah, and the inyan from Pnimis Chochma is the inyan from Tainu. Therefore, somebody who's Megala, a new inyan, mitzad Chochma Satera, he becomes Mishmala Oineg, Tzal Uponov, so Rabbi Avu, mit der ganze Arif. So the Rebbe says that Pnimis inyan, that what that really means is that Tainug itself and Chochma are really inyan echad. In other words, the Tainug is how it is mitzad the inyan aboire atzmei. Everything is oil v'nichla in the inyan von atzmusi is baruch, what that what we call Tainug. Chochma is how kaviyachol the Eibus is megala that inyan, even that it becomes what you might call the property of the whole inyan from Seidish Shtaus. It remains betoichoi the inyan from Aliyah Vishkalalas in the Mokkah, and that's the inyan from Gevura start. In other words, in order that inyan should go over and become Kilu Shach to Eizeshu Seder, watch mitzadem, then you have to have two opposite koyfas. On the one hand, the Aliyah V'Dveikes, and then on the other hand, that's forcing itself Kaviyachol into a inyan of beginning of a Seder which will lead to the Niroim. And that's the inyan from Gevura is the Atik, and that's what Chochma is. Therefore we find in Chochma always the two inyanim, mitzad echad, inyan what its inyan is Gilui, Reishis are Gilui, and mitzad hasheni kol inyan is Aliyah V'Dveikes V'Iskalalas in Atzmusi Spara. And therefore the Rebbe said that's because be Mekurim V'Sher Shom, that's inyan echad, and that's what he put the whole Moshe of the house. The whole Moshe of the Bayis was to show that the inyan from Chochma, even though that's a koyach golui, or that's teif is tafki in the inyan from Pnimis v'atzmus atayim. Alright, so now we go on with Leil Beis, the Chag V'Sukkos Tov Reish Ayin Dalet. Ha'isa Sukkosei Tachas Ha'ilon, Ki Ilu Asoa B'Teich HaBayis. This is the Mishnah in Masechta Sukkah. Well, it says that if you make your sukkah tachas ha'ilon, under a tree, then it's just like as you made it inside the house. Now, one of the diukim in that is, which we'll also, to a certain extent, we'll touch on in the Maimah, is that if you wanted to say it was possible, you could have just said it was possible. Or you could have just said, sukkah asuya tachas ilon pesuli. Why do they say ho easy? Somebody who makes his sukkah underneath a tree, like as if he made it inside the house. In other words, you're saying that a sukkah is a market, and a house is a market. But if you make your sukkah underneath a ilan, then you're mamshik a makif, but it's like as if you were mamshik the makif of a house, and the makif of a house is not enough for the makif of a sukkah. Understand? The makif of a house is not the makif of a sukkah. It's taki a makif, but it's not the makif of a sukkah. And therefore, it says if you make a makif for your sukkah, bo'ivin shel ilon, then it's got the same aspect as if it were a makif, which is mitzad habayis, not mitzad sukkah. Slicha, not mitzad hamshach of a sukkah. So that itself is a very fascinating diuk. Why did he go around the corner like that and compare those two makifim of Ilon and Bayis? Mashma, that they're taking makifim, and you can't deny that they're not makifim. A Bayis is brought down b'chol makim that that's indicative of a makif, and yet nonetheless he says that any inyan which is shy to a makif of a Bayis is not shy to a sukkah. A sukkah is another makif altogether. And therefore, if you, A'ilon is like a middle point. A'ilon, you might have thought, that since it's outside, or it's not mamish abayis, that it's a different makif, and maybe it's a makif hamishkarev to the makif of a sukkah. Therefore, he says no, that it's takia a makif, but it's a makif al-derech with the makif of a bayis, not the makif of a sukkah. That's what we have to say is the signon of the losh. V'tzodik lahavin, says the Rebbe, v'halo yadua de ilon ubchinus oyer makif. Well, Derek Hagav, in answer to your question, if you look carefully later, I don't want to go back over it, but we had the whole long beer about the Indian of the Indian Hoylode. Remember, we bought the whole Moshe of Hoylode. That's where the Ike Raya comes in, where it connects the Indian from the Indian with Hoylode, with the Indian from Tainu, and that's nice and Kolatz Musa. It was there that we saw all the Inyanim came together, but it's also in the Moshel that the Atzmas, Tainu, and Chochma are really one Indian, is in the Moshel of the Bayis. But it comes out further with a tremendous toikif in those brackets when it gets to the Indian Hoylode. And we dealt with that at some length. Sorry, in the Halo Yadu, the Elon who begins a Makif. Elon is a Makif. How do we know that? Okay, we should cross it by Romavino. We shanu tachas ha'eit. Romavino said to them, how do you call it? Shpachachon, hishanu, rest up under the eight. Siman, that the eight is a makif al bnei Adam, that they want to sit down. Shezehu mashihim shiklohem Avram Avinu makif. So you might say the Moshe was not sufficient. So he said it's Takem Mavur in Sforim, has brought down in Drushik Siddhas, Barichas, that Avram Avinu, by telling them to sit under the tree, he was megala to them things that Malachim Mitadatzmai are not able to reach. In other words, that Malachim Mitadatzmai don't really reach Oiras Makifim. I mean, they can know about them, and they can sometimes be what you might call, they might say Kodesh, there can be certain inyonim of Makif. Well, I not Makifim Hamitiyim. Avram Avinu was megala to them a tremendous chiddush that he was mamshik to them or Makif. And that was with that he indicated to the great Hamai lived in the Neshamas and V'chulu. And the interesting is that he that he was mamshik that Makif through the Indian from Achila Davki. The whole beer, it doesn't get to Azocha Makifim. So the beer is, it depends how you eat and who you eat. Not who you eat, go for a bit of who you are eating. In other words, if you eat like a wrong vino and tigessen, then you mamshich hanur makif alidei din and achila. The whole beer. That's why I said them, hishanu tachas ha'etz, and then it's written, v'heim, we said that, v'heim is written another eitz, v'yoy cheilu. And they ate. The whole beer, that's in from achilas kohanim, and even higher. The kohanim ate, and the balim got a kapara. The person who bought the korban got a kapara through the fact that the kohanim ate. So the question is, the kohanim sit down and eat a piece of flesh to it, and the bala shkoga or the bala veda, he has a kapara, and their eating was a inim milmaila lamata. They're going to tell you. So Avram Avinu alidei achidush nifla in his achila, he was mamshik this makif to them. Abal chaponim mavua that the ilan is a makif. V'sukkah who gam ken makif shezein schachasukkah. This is also a makif. Umipnei ma is a sukkosi tachas in kuasar chulu. Why is it? It's like as if you made it in a house where the makif can't help you at all. What's the difference between these makif and does a makif and does a makif? So the Rebbe says, why is it shezeh ki'ilu asoah? Ki'ilu asoah means that he also made it in a makif, but a makif which is ki'ilu muvan or yedua, that's l'gavi asukah toignes. Why is it that the ilan? So the chiddush of the Mishnah is that the ilan is also as a makif. So the Rebbe says, how many makifim do we have? What's the chilif? And their makif is their makif. ומפני מה הוריש הסוכוסי תחת ציר נקירתו ובייסר אין המובן לפי מה דאיסר במדרש רבה פרשת ויירו עתו אמרתו והישענו תחת העץ. You said to the malachim, to my representatives, that they should literally lean and take it easy under the tree. Chayecha shani poirei lebanecha bamidbo b'yishuv u'liyotzid loved. I'm going to pay back for that. I'll give poreya means what? I'll pay a star. I'll pay what's due to your sons in the desert in the ordinary, how do you call it, Yishuv in Eretz Yisrael, and later on Liosid Lovey, I'll pay them for that tremendous thing you did by telling them to rest under the tree. Bamidbo Poras Onon Lamosak. We say that the Abishter gave them the Ananea Hakov, but that was a covering and a curtain over their head. B'yishu b'sukkah stays for Arin from mitzvah sukkah, comes from the Arin from Makiv. The Osid Love v'sukkah tiyeh letzeil yomam. The sukkah is going to be a shade during the day, and that's referring to, that's going to be Liosid Love. So there was the Rebbe, come to Islafise, Hara, the mitzvah sukkah, who mishum de veishanu tachosei. That's a piroyan that Davis is paying up for having sat the people down under the tree. Is that we are getting mitzvah sukkah mitzad de amshachas hamakif of the Elon to the Malachim. Why do you say that it's got nothing really to do with the sukkah? And on the contrary, if you make it that way, then it's clear you did it in a way which everybody understands is not a Ayinim from Sukkah, a Maki from Sukkah. So the Rebbe L'chera, this is the Mokeh. That's on that basis. The Rebbe said he would pay the Yidden all these rewards and all these staris mitzad that inyan. And we see that the mitzvah from Sukkah, both now and Liosid, are the direct payment of that star mitzad the fact that he said he shanu tachosah. If you're mamshik nowadays, that makif then toignu. That makif was the source of the whole inyan from Sukkah. So why is it that after became the Sukkah b'poil is a different makif altogether than that makif? Well, in that, yesh lahakti mashin is bur liyir ha'efresh bein moichas timor l'gul golta. Now we go back to our main theme. The gul golta beginners atik. Makif, in other words, it's also a gila of the oineg, but we saw it's a gila of the oineg, how it comes derech ha'oras harotzen. That there's a ha'ora from the oineg which is meya in rotzen, and rotzen is legabi amitius ha'atzmius, it's a inifan amshocha bederech hitzoy. Over meiches timor, chochmas timor, Meir b'chinas pnimius atik, or b'chinas penimius. Not only the pnimius atik is meir dot, but it's meir also b'penimius. As we saw in the previous moment, talking about shocha penimius, or b'gili penimius through the inyan from gvoris atik, through the inyan from davki tik boiras atzma. When is boer the gili ataynu guberotzen ubechachma. Gili ataynu. Can be a gilui in two other koichais, in koich harotzen and koich hachachma. Rach, sheberotzen hu rach ha'oras ha'oinig. But rotzen is separate altogether from oinig. And if there's a gila of oinig in rotzen, then it's only a ha'ora derech chitzenis bevar. Ubepchinas makiv v'abdola. And therefore it's called gilgulta. What gilgulta is the skull bone that surrounds the inyan hamoyah. That indicates a inyan from Makiv, also a inyan shall have Avdolov, as it were, opgetrogenkeit, to use the expression in Yiddish, withdrawn, as it were. So it's well known that sometimes we say that a thing which is Bavdola is mitzad goydel ma'alosai, and therefore it's Bavdola, it can't come begolo mitzad goydel ma'alosai, the same as. But the fact that the inyan of Gulgelta remains Bavdola, Einachanami does mitzad the Mail Shaboy. The Hainu that it's inyan Rotzen. And inyan Rotzen is a Koyach Makiv. Over Lagabi ultimate inyanim mitzad Pinimis Ha'atzmas, then that's a Chitzon. Because ultimately the Kavona Amitis Ba'atzmas is Davke that the Atzmas should be Misgala, even for Dira, to use the ultimate expression. In other words, the ultimate shleimus of all the Amshochas is when the Atzmi is Davke Bo B'derech Penimi. Therefore, if the Atzmi is Bavdola Mitzad Ma'alosei, it's a symbol that he's not Mamish Penimis V'Atzmi is V'Atzmi. Because Penimis V'Atzmi is going to keep Davke B'Penimi. However, the fact that he's b'makif $5 is an indication of ma'alosei l'gabi de madregus shebepnimiyas. Over mitzad hasheni, it's also indicatory that he's not the ultimate shleimus of the atzmi. Liyesh harotzen hu atzmi kemoya ha'oinig t'shneihem etzem. רק שהעונג הוא פנימי פנימיס העצמיאס ורוצן הוא חיצוניס העצמיאס. In other words, it's taki עצמיאס, but it's עצמיאs how he comes beginners חיצוניס. In other words, his Indian is to be meir to inyonim how they are michutz laha'etzem. And therefore, sof kosof, he's the Indian of how the עצמיאs relates to inyonim b'derech חיצוניס, but not b'derech hamshochas kol עצmusa. אבל אינו עונג סיבה אל הרוצן, ובעצם מהוסם עם ההפכים זה מי, because we saw that the Indian oinig is aliyah bedweikes in the etzem, and on the contrary, it's the Indian we'll see later here in the Maima, that the emissary Indian van oinig is what we call makif of an oil chayze. It's actually going back into the etzem, and it's aliyah of his color that's in the etzem. Ve'ilu rotzen in yon is davke am shocher bechitonius v'gilui el ha-mekablim in an oven what the gabi di atzmius is chitoni, and therefore sokos of there to ha fochim ze miser v'al kein ma she begile harotzen yesh beze oinig hari ze racha or levad ubeginnes makiv. And therefore the Indian van Gugulta also has a certain Indian van Atik, a certain Gila van Atik, but it's Atik it's only a Haora Bilvad, and therefore it remains. It's not meshana the fact that the Gugulta being rotten is Kilo Muvda, that we pointed out just now, the beer in the meaning van Abdullah. In other words, that the Gila Atik there can't be meshana. The Matzih is that of course it's an Indian what inyon is lahoya ba'avdollah or b'mak, not the Panima. Over the etzem of the atzmas wants Davki to go into Panimias, and that's the Indian oinek. As we're going to see, that's kilo in oinek gufa, a wondrous, like what you might call shinu akav, because as we said, the whole Indian oinek is aliyah of dveikes, and here's the Indian of Davki being nimshach. So we'll see about that as we go along. Mashenken achochma eno atzmias. I'm sorry, where are we? Alizacha ora levad uprinis machim. Mashenken achochma eno atzmi ki im koyach me nefesh. He's only a koyach. Chochma as a koyach is not the atzmi. He's a koyach me nefesh. V'yesh lo sibo. And since he's a koyach, and a koyach is a specific limited entity which comes begoli lefi achukim shaloi, and therefore he has to have a siba upon him. So we saw that the siba was the oinig. Omnom hu atzmus hanefesh. In other words, that siba is really the atzmus hanefesh, mashu hu b'madreges adam. On the contrary, that's the shleimus. Well, that what he is the Indian from Chochmah. Well, that's the shleimus kola hanefesh. Like we said, that the nefesh hamaskilas is davke mitzad the Indian from Adam. Vahainu. So he said, what is that? Sha'atainu usibas achochma. So what do we mean by saying that? So what is the beer? It's like we said, first of all, that the atzmius hanefesh, well, that's what is goyrem that is called chochma. In other words, that the etzem meaning for Adam in Yonah is chochma. That's Milas Kolor. So the Rebbe said, come to us that the etzem of the nefesh is called al shema Adam, and that's called nefesh hamaskilas. So he said, what is the etzem of Adam? So what is sof atzmos? That's the Indian von oinig. Therefore we saw that oinig and etzem meaning chochma. That's the etzem mila of the nefesh of Adam have a kesher one with the other, and they're linked one to the other. Omna hu atzmos nefesh mashu hu b'madreges Adam. He said, albeit that's even atzmus hanefesh, how it's gone into the madrega of Adam. In other words, that the atzmus tainu, which is atzmus hanefesh, and that's a siba bentime. It's what we call a siba. In other words, that the koyach hachochma, which is the infant Adam, being beginning of the spheres, well, that comes b'derech siba umasuvav from the tainu. V'ainu shatainu usibas hachochma. Ve'im kain if it's an inyan from Siba, Harizeh b'chinas islapshus pnimius mi'achar shezo asiba. Now here the Rebbe comes out and says clearly, Baruch Hashem, that's what we touched, come up Yomim in the Bia earlier. We pointed out that Asiba and Amasuva are rechoikim zemizeh, kimat derech yesh me'ayin, but we said the pig le'idoch kisa, davki a thing which is yesh me'ayin, needs the whole inyan of the ayin in the yesh. And bli inyan ayin, ein matzias yesh klal. If I say that Tainuk is the Sibas HaChochma, ultimately that means that the whole Metzias HaChochma is the Einik. I only need the Lashon Siba, like we touched in last week's year, Mitzad the Gila HaChochma al Sakoyav, and al Sa'inim and Asfira, over Mitzad the Pnimius in Yonom, then really they're one and the same, Inyan, because since the whole Metzias HaChochma couldn't be, being as it is a Masuva from a Siba, and what's it Siba is Tainuk, it comes to us that the whole Inyan of the Metzias HaChochma, I feel that is Begoloi, I feel that is a Masuva, is really the Inyan of Tainuk. Raksha Bish Pashtas HaChochma, Hu HaOros Ein. How it comes out in the Gilui as a Sphira, then you see only there B'chinas HaOra, just like we see in the Yesh HaOra of the Ein. We don't really see Begoloi. Ava Mitzad Pnimius, like the Alter Rebbe teaches in the Geras HaKodesh, Hu Levade B'kocha V'yacholte Lahitzes HaYesh Me'ayin V'efes HaMukla. Hidden in that is really the whole Atzmius. Mitzad Pnimius is the whole Atzmius is there. But Golui, we see it only as a Siba. From these Lashonas, come to us that we learned the Pshat B'Oiv and Hanoch and Baruch Hashem. He said, here the Rebbe really puts it sort of clear with these few brief Lashonas. He said, Im kein Harizem P'chinas Islapshit Pnimius, Me'achis Sibas. But we learned the whole Pshat of Siba rightly, that that's Mitzad the Islapshit Pnimius of the Etem. Raksha Bishpashtas, it's not noticeable, you only see the Ha'ora in a Begoli. Ube Etzem HaChochma, Hu B'chinas Etzem HaOinik. Ube B'Pnimis Ayin, it's really one and the same, could there can't be a Metzias, the whole Yesh, the whole Siba, Kol Inyon is managed the Etzem which brought him about, and therefore B'Pnimis V'Atzmius of the Oinik is there, the whole Inyan of Chochma, and it really one Inyan. And therefore, ultimately, the Inyan of the Tainuk becomes the whole Metzias of, and is the whole Metzias of Chochma. V'ainu, Chochma Stimoa, Melubish B'chinas HaTainuk HaAtzmi. Hainu, the Hainu B'chinas Pnimius Ati. In other words, the Eibishter, Mamish, how he is, B'atzmusay, gefindt sich in the Inyan of Chochma Stimoa, and he finds himself there by even Pnimius. Afila will say the Chochma Stimoa is already the beginning of Reishis Haseda. And that Kufa is going to become further cautious as we go along now. We're going to be married in those in the after all, there is a Evdil between Atik and Chochma Stimoa. How do we say that they're mamish, one and the same meaning? Inyonim me'ain there. We're now going to develop on that. What comes out here, an interesting pure observation, is that we say that really the Yesh, which is B'derech Siba, which is B'derech Masuva, Mia Siba, in other words, the Eivishter, how he is the immediate inyan from the Atzmi, and the inyan if we take the Yesh, the Hanira, really so the Yesh Hanira is really mamish the Pnimius of Atzmosei is mamish the Atzmi. And what it really comes out is the Shorsha Harishan of the Atzmi's Kilo, there's a presence or an awareness on the part of the Atzmis of the Yesh in a way that they're really mamish inyan. Well, if he's that the fact that the Eivishter made a world, that's what the Alter Rebbe is meramed. And the Alter Rebbe says that Hu Levadi B'Kerva V'Yecholte, Lahamti, how does he say there? Lahamti as a Yesh Me'ayin V'Efesach. V'Mukli says Hu Levadi B'Kerva V'Yecholte. That's Kilo, that's the Koichoi V'Yecholte, how it is Mitzad Hu Levadi. Daf Kidur to the Indian from the Yesh. Remember, is that the whole beauty we're learning now in the Chittas in Shara Yichud, and Mitzad Yidiosi is part of Mitzad the Indian from Da. We didn't quite get to that point. We're getting in the next few stickel I thought. is yoideas atzmi yoideas koloni for him. Come to us, that could be ideas atzmusay, who yoideas hayesh, as you might say, more than all our under in Yonim, because that's Davki the Hulavada. Dort is Davki the Hulavada. And it's really Hainoach, it's really Mamish, that's him. Had he caught, he's the yes is Mamish a chip off the old block, but not Stam. Das is it. Das is the Atzmi becomes the Inyan of the yes. That's a good. If we say that that's the pure in this Inyan here, because the Inyan from Chokma is also a Chokma Mi'ayin Timor. So, and that's what he's going to be Mazman of it. We see it is that way. Because it comes out in even from a tia, but then yesh mi'ayin. And after we say that the old pnimis is mamish, the old pnimis achochm is mamish the infa atzmusi, the atzmi mami. And when we nimta the yesh, the Eivster Kaviyova he can't run away from the yesh. He's made it. He can't. The Eivster Konish, as he said. I don't know how to say it. He can't. How do you go to Nachalose? We stayed with Nachalose. What are we saying down there? Yeah, lo yiteish avaya amoy v'Nachalose lo yazoi. So we're going to see as we go along here, and I say is Mashman, and that's what we saw in Perek with Tzadik Gimel. The Ike, this is in the Neshama. So the Ali in Yonim, this is the Ike in the Inim and the Neshamas. And the Neshamas, Dafki, they have to put up with the Yesh. Dafki, they, to a certain extent, become like a Inim of the Yesh. They are Mislavish in the Yesh, and they're the ones who are Noishe Be'atzma, with Kol Inim HaYesh, and the ganze Achrayas for the Yesh, it's Dafki the Neshama. If I'm going to nimtza that the Pnimis of Allah in Yonim is Dafki in the Yesh. If I'm going to, that's a pshat. Say it over again, I forgot the lesson. Nachalose lo yazeh, what's the first word? Ki lo yitesh Hashem amoy. Lo yitesh Hashem amoy. This is the Inif from the Neshamas. Nachalose lo yazeh, this is the Inif from the Tzor. And Beklal Inif from Yidn Halei Alamata, B'kol Mochim Shaheim. Aber Biche, Be'eretz HaKodesh, lo yazeh, so we can say that's not the Taichap's a description of Eish to say, yeah, it's because the Inif from the Yesh, mit hu levade bichote, it's all like one Inif. It's only that it comes out, but derech hamtzoah, but even shel siba u'mesuva, or suva me'asiba, or so chesach. Ich merke, das ist die more in die Sachen mit. In Yoni, what they come, but derech hamtzoah, but derech Yesh, he makes them Kaviohu kol atzmusay, or the ganze Schleim Sa'etzim is totally in Zeta. What we can say is Rabbeinu Shalom. Who's your v'tah? What's with your yesh? Who's your tutzcharum? So you say, well, he's got a bomb somewhere. You say, I mean, so he's only a kind, Bonercha. Yes, das ist nicht Nar Yisrael boy Havehu. He's a little kid, and that stuff gives shows how the Ava Atzmiyah. So he's made a few blunders. What's it? And it is I say, come to stuff from die Welt. I mean, if you're misbeinen, alles über Proteus. As I come to it. But the meat is in a oinig, mon davke a mesuva, right? Was kommt raus. A werte Sach, und das ist die oinig Art, mir die oinig Art, das ist er. See, I'm right. There's a called a little explosion to support me. Several. Younger, right?
Somebody just got married.
Somebody got married? That's the latest? Yeah. When somebody gets married, they let off fireworks? You're kidding. All right, so let's start the first line and then we'll call it an evening. Omnam lefian. So he's loving. Yachadu, מאחר חוכמס תימור משלב מבחינת פנימיוס עתיק וממילא הרי חוכמס תימור הוא פנימיוס הכסף. חוכמס תימור, even now it become chokma, is really pneumius atik, like we saw before eich. למעלה מבחינת גולגלתא שבחינת חיצוניוס הכסף, דהאורס עתיק הוא שם מבחינת מקיף לבד, וכמה שכוסף בית חיים דגולגלתא הוא חיצוניוס הכסף, ומויכס תימור פנימיוס הכסף. After we've been a while hoine, there was a new zestige steter gezien uit schrijven, before is het zijn uitgegaan. Chachmas Timor, who is Machila Chachma Giluya. You know how to say, how does that happen? Yeah, from Chachmas Timor, where Chachma Giluya. Chachma Giluya is another story already. That's already out. Chachma Shato Seder van Sfira is what later it's going to become. I'm sure I'll be there, a Seder van him. And those are the Chachma from where that comes from. Does it look Mamish, he himself? Does it look Pnimis? I think, to use the expression, does it look Eralei? That's him. Das ist nicht kein Chofma, das ist nicht mamisch Erlei. Now from that becomes that, how do you get Chofma Stimor from dort? How does that go? So Emma, she said, hey, noch Hanami Atini from Siba or Masuba. We became, how does the Siba come to the Masuba? Because they come in Sochos, it's got to be some sort of a Yachas, some sort of a Bio. Particularly, we said that that's Nimtz or Misham. Nimshach Misham. Nobody would suggest that the Abish is through, even though it's written that in not Ultreros, you have a Zorokon, in the Hanami, the Abish was through a magic stones from a box, came about a world of Epis, a pure Muzayan, in the whole Seder Inon, if you say Gaitas, that if that's Pnimis for Atzmi, it's Atik, Chachmas Timor. Ja, say what from them Chachma Giluya. How does it work? I say Gaitas. And we'll see, we're going to answer that, and then we're going to come to a deeper Shaila. How does that work? And we'll just keep it going and going here, almost, okay, believe safe. So, I mean, it's so evident, it's unbelievable. And the same with the Song of War. The truth is, when you get into the Song of War, it just goes, believe so, just keeps weiter. Have a good evening, gentlemen. The main thing is, how do they say Moshe has to come? There you are. Moshe has to come. Mr. Lokacha. You want Moshe now?
Moshe now. Moshe now.